move on to some mitigative actions.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that last point was like really good because, okay, they stole some credentials, like what's the impact of that? But then as you had, there's a lot of impact there because there's data theft, there's ransomware, there's, unauthorized access in the system, and any one of those things could cause a situation where critical functions stopped, where a network was encrypted, where business continuity was interrupted. So that's why we're really highlighting, that for our, for our webinar this time. So some of the things, that we recommend that organizations do to help out with that, we always kind of say sometimes in the industry, it's not if, but it's when something like this happens. So it's really, really important to prioritize planning for these type of events. You don't want to be the company that's thinking it can't happen to us because, as we see every day and the clients that come to us, it can really happen to anybody. So, along with that, it's incident response planning is enough, but also, regular testing, vulnerability assessments, kind of making sure that the planning you're doing is working. Tabletop exercises are, a great way to do that. That's definitely something that we help our clients with because, you may not even realize maybe, small gaps that you have in procedures or operations that could cost you money when it came to having a live incident like this.
Yeah, and having a cyber risk retainer in place so that should something go wrong, you can act quickly. As we were saying before, a lot of these things can escalate very, very quickly. And so it's important to be able to mobilize the most capable people possible to deal with that incident. And that also goes hand in hand with having controls in place. The controls may not always stop a cyber attack. They can slow one down. So the capability to be able to, maybe reroute areas of the network, isolate specific machines, things like that can certainly slow things down. And those controls that you put in place last year, maybe they need to be updated this year in response to the new threats that are emerging. And, for example, reducing the time to live for some of those tokens. And finally, looking at the external attack surface of a business. And how those continuity plans can play into that, I think is also really, really important to ensure you're checking that at the very least once a year. So let's move to the summary now and get some closing thoughts. What are we focused on today? Well, we know that tech and telecoms is still a very targeted sector. This is a global pattern. We're seeing it. Other organizations are seeing it as well. Professional services, still a very highly targeted sector as well. Again, they provide services to many different companies, and that makes them just a valid target as tech and telecom as well. And we've seen a large amount of nation state activity this year. It's been highly publicized. There's been a lot of sort of law enforcement alerting about it as well, and we've seen it ourselves also. Laurie, I'll hand over to you for the last two.
Yeah, and then, just with the ransomware groups, like we said, like a lot of what we're seeing right now could be kind of like a rebuilding of that particular ecosphere. One thing that happened in Q3, I think that was interesting. I know George talked about nation state activities. There was a report that came out in Q3 about Iranian nation state actors actually kind of participating in that initial access broker activity. And you would, typically we would kind of think of that to be, kind of like Eastern European forums, Russian language forums where that's taking place. And those are the only actors that are kind of benefiting from that landscape. But this showed that there's actually, other countries are seeing, the payout that you can get from this kind of activity, and they're trying to get a piece of it as well. So it's just a constant evolution with that. But like I said, even though, ransomware and nation state, those are the ones that tend to get more of the headlines. But we still see that things like business email compromise and insider threat, those are still, a key area of risk for businesses. So also important to, have plans and controls around those as well.